Okay, in this section we're going to be talking about how to create charts and graphs in Excel. In this first lecture I'm just going to show you some of the possibilities with charts and graphs and give you an introduction to the ones that we're going to create in the next few lectures, and I'll walk you step by step through creating your first chart. So if you look up here in the left hand corner of this spreadsheet, you'll probably recognize our kitchen remodel cost worksheet. The only difference is that I've taken the grid lines out of our worksheet just to make our spreadsheet and our charts easier to look at. And by the way that you do that is just by going to View and clicking Grid Lines, and see they pop back up, or I can click Grid Lines and they go away. So what I've done is created these three charts based on our spreadsheet. So you can see this first one here is basically just the cost of different materials. So we have the materials across the bottom, just like we have in our first column, and then we have our total costs laid out into columns. The awesome thing about charts is that it makes all of your data very visual. So we can look down this column and kind of pick out some things and see that flooring is our most expensive cost, cabinets are next. If we look around some more, we'll see that the fridge is the next expensive thing. Or we can create a chart like this and we can really easily see that our flooring is the most expensive thing, that our cabinets are the second, and that our fridge is the third. And so this is a column chart, which I'll show you how to do. And then next here is a pie chart. It's just a circle that's divided into segments representing each of the materials in our chart. So all of our materials here are represented around the outside, and in this case, instead of having the cost of different ones listed in the chart, we have the percentages of the total cost for each one. So again, we can see that our flooring is 41% of the entire cost of the remodel. And then when we go over to paint, we can see that it's only 2%. So this gives you a really great visual breakdown of your costs. Finally, we have essentially the same chart as this first one over here, but this one is set up as a bar chart, so our data is represented horizontally. And the nice thing about a bar chart is it makes it even more clear the differences in any value. So you can see how flooring really stands out because this bar extends so far across the page, whereas this one does still stand out, but it's not quite as dramatic as this. And you can see all the way down to like the cabinet handles and the paint, what each one costs and how each item relates to the rest of the items in the list. So let's just start from scratch with our kitchen remodel cost worksheet, and I'll show you how to create your first chart. And probably one of the hardest things about creating charts is deciding how you want to represent your data. For instance, if we were to have a chart that listed our materials and then the quantity of each material, that might not really be that beneficial to us, because it's not necessarily going to help you in any way to see a chart that shows you that you're going to have 24 cabinet handles and 400 square feet of flooring. On the other hand, if you want to compare costs of each material to each other to see which parts of your project are going to be the most expensive, then comparing your total costs for each material makes a little bit more sense. So before you go to create a chart, look at your data and really think for a minute about what you want to represent. So in this case, we're just going to work with materials and our total. And there are a couple of ways that you can use the data like this. You can format it as a table, which we'll talk about in another part of this course, or you can name it as a range. And the way you do that is you select the entire range that you want to work with, click up here in the name bar, name your range, just call this kitchen R for kitchen remodel, and hit enter. Then if you click off of this and select it again, you'll see that the name of your range pops up there. Or you can just select your range, go to Insert, and click on Charts. Now you can either pick from one of the drop downs here, which will give you a little preview of each chart type, or you can click on this arrow, which will bring up a dialog box, or you can go to the Recommended Charts tool. And I like the Recommended Charts tool because it'll give you ideas for what it thinks will work best for you, and in some cases it's not very helpful because, like in this instance, I have the quantity and cost included in this range, and so it's trying to figure out how to calculate the quantity and cost along with the total, and some of these charts don't really make that much sense. But typically if you have a kind of tight range that is relevant only to the chart information that you're going to present, then the recommended charts tool is generally pretty accurate and helpful. I'm going to go to all charts, and I'm just going to choose a column chart. And even though this looks kind of funny right now, we're going to change it so that it's representing the information that we want it to represent. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to just click on that, and you notice when you hover it over it, it gives you a really nice close-up of it so you can see what you're getting into. But I've selected that one, and I'm going to click OK. And that's just going to automatically create a chart. Now you can see once this chart is created, it is showing which cells it's using out of my range for the different things in this chart. So I'm going to show you how to change that. So first I'm going to shrink this chart down a little bit so we can kind of fit everything in here where we want it. And then I'm going to right click on my chart, and I'm going to go to select data. I'll just pull this up here a little. So you can see first we have our chart data range, and that's referring to my whole range, which is just what I want, where I don't need to calculate the quantity and the individual cost of each item. I just want to do a chart with the entire totals of each item. Then I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and I'm going to take the quantity and the cost, and I'm going to remove those. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the rows and columns. So I actually want the total cost of my materials to be in the vertical column, and I want all of these items to be in the horizontal column, so each of them will be represented differently. So I just click this, and it'll switch those back and forth. And you can see how that's changed things. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I can expand this a bit to make it look a little better. And now you can see we have a really clear representation of our flooring costs, our cabinet costs, cabinet handles, and all of the different materials that we have in our spreadsheet. And that gives you a basic chart representing the differences of the costs of each of your materials. In the next lecture, we'll look at some tools for formatting this so we can change the colors and different elements of it to make it look exactly like we want it to look.